On November 9th, 1958, the Baltimore Colts traveled to New York for an NFL championship preview, favored by 2.5 points. Frank Gifford was hobbled, while Baltimore's star quarterback Johnny Unitas was out with a partially collapsed lung. With Unitas out, Baltimore was forced to start George Shaw, and so there was a major feeling that the Giants might spoil Baltimore's unbeaten season. In the end, the Giants eked out a win, thanks in large part to sloppy tackling by the Colts. Pat Summerall hit a 28-yard field goal to win it with less than 3 minutes left in the fourth quarter. This was an impressive win for the Giants, who had now beaten 2 undefeated teams in a row. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions beat the Cleveland Browns easily, which meant that Cleveland and New York were now tied for first place in the Eastern Division. And so we've got a real big one today. At least in real life, this was a real big game with the Colts coming into it completely undefeated. So the way that the schedule worked back in 1958 is you had 2 different divisions, the Eastern Division and the Western Division. You had 12 games in your season. So for the Giants, there were 5 other teams in the Eastern Division. You had home and away against them. And then they played 1 game against 2 teams in the Western Division. And it just so happens that in 58, they ended up playing against the Baltimore Colts. It was the Colts and then the Detroit Lions that they played against. So, we'll see how this goes today for us, but that's a pretty interesting way to sort of look at what happened in the past. And by the way, it took me a little while to sort of figure that out. As odd as this might sound, there's not a whole bunch of information out there about what the scheduling patterns were in the NFL back in 1958. So apparently not so many people are all that curious about this. It says here week 8. Technically, it's not really week 8, right? Because of the way technical Super Bowl works, you have to have, if you have a game that's not on the exact same day, it has to have its own week and stuff like that. So whatever. I've actually forgotten off the top of my head. I think this is our 7th game, actually, not the 8th. So there you have it. We're about halfway through the season, and we're doing pretty well. Now, in real life, the Giants were not necessarily favored to win, as I noted, because Frank Gifford was out with an injury, but Johnny Unitas was also out with an injury in real life, which really hurt Baltimore's attack. So, with that in mind, we'll see how we can do against this Baltimore defense. Probably should have dumped it off there to Triplet, but we ended up doing okay. Triplet's just up there standing there looking at me the whole time, kind of wondering what he's supposed to be doing. That was a really, really good hit there by whichever Baltimore defender that was. He totally blew that one up. And as I said last time, you can always tell when these teams have good defensive players because they have a way of making things happen. 3rd and 1, I think we're going to try to run. And we do run, and we are just barely able to get out of that. Triplet, not a bad player, and he's got a lot of strength, as you can see there. At least the Tecmo version of him has a lot of strength. I'm not sure if he was doing this in real life, if he was really, taking the ball and knocking guys off of him left and right like that. But you can definitely imagine it. See, look at that defense, though. The Baltimore Colts have a very, very good defense, something that we got to be careful about here. I kind of wish I had that old play in the arsenal, but I got rid of it. And this should be an easy touchdown to Alex Webster, so we're up 7-0. Somebody else had noticed in the comments, and this is true, that this particular ROM, for some reason, is allowing a lot more of our guys to be wide open than the Canadian one did. So I'm not sure what the difference is. Again, this ROM was created, I think, in 2019 or 2020, one of the two. It's a little bit older. Maybe they have a different style or something like that. I'm not exactly sure what the difference is. All I know is that we need to do the best that we can to try to win and take advantage of whatever it is that the ROM gives us. Johnny Unitas, of course, is in this game here. In real life, he was out. By the way, it's one of those things, injuries, transactions, and stuff is not something that a lot of people do a lot of research for in the history of the NFL. There's sort of like this feeling that, it's not really that important or whatever. It's not quite the same as it is with Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball, you play a simulated game, OTP or one of the many other games that, I tend to play. Usually you're going to wind up with huge lists of transactions. Everybody goes and does the real life line of research and stuff. This is a blog. But when it comes to the NFL, nobody's really done the research. Nobody really looks at this stuff, which is kind of odd because it actually is really important, Knowing stuff like, oh yeah, Johnny Unitas was actually out for this game, that might help explain why the Giants ended up winning. Yeah, that was an amazing catch. So we're doing all right here. I think we can finally give it over to Gifford. You can definitely see the difference, though, in defenses. Even though the Colts have been giving us some things in the backfield that were kind of wide open, this is a much better defensive team than the other teams that we've played so far. All right. 2nd and 12. Let's see if we can just sort of waft this one in. I had to get that one away a lot faster than I wanted to. Yeah, they've got a really good defensive line. That's what's happening. And so they've been beating our guys over and over again, but we end up with a touchdown anyway. So, you know, we'd probably be up 14-0 here if it, well, maybe 14, 13 or 14. Yeah, that does go through. We would be up 14-0 if it wasn't for looking past when they decided to run. We just got beaten pretty badly on that running play. Other than that, we would have been doing fine. So they have not thrown a single pass yet with Johnny Unitas. And what that's going to do here is, yep, they do finally decide to pass. And what that does is it kind of freezes me so that all I'm thinking about is the potential run. So, you know, there is a lot of real-life football strategy that does come into Tecmo Super Bowl, despite the fact that you're not looking at, you know, calling actual defensive plays and stuff like that. Yeah, so what happened there to our secondary, I'm not sure. All right, great. That's exactly what we want to see happen. So we get them with the 4 and out, and that gives us a chance to drive up the field again and to try to score again. Anyway, so overall, this is an okay ROM. I don't know if I would necessarily say that this is like, you know, must play or an all-time great or anything like that. You know, people have noted, just like I said, that there are some things that are inaccurate. For example, the goalposts are a little bit too far back. They should be up on the goal line. Yeah, there's just a couple of little things like that going on. This is going to be intercepted, isn't it? Now, if you really wanted to go hardcore with something like this, you would need a ROM setup where you can't call any plays out of the shotgun, because nobody was using the shotgun back in 1958. So, but I don't know that we're ever going to have that sort of thing happen again. That would require, you know, quite a bit of research into like NFL history that I don't think you're going to see in Tecmo Super Bowl. But you never know. Maybe if you get somebody who's motivated enough, you can start seeing that sort of thing. Yeah, there was nothing we could do there. This is the thing, when they guess right, we're really in trouble because sort of naturally they have a better line than we do. Yeah, and we're going to see a number of situations like that today, I'm afraid. So this is not going to be quite as easy as I think we originally anticipated. Yeah, man, he put that fake move on. That was actually beautiful to watch. He went a little up and down, and there's nothing we can do about that. LJ Dupree makes it 14-12. Let's see if we can block this kick. Nope, can't get there in time. Oh, they should have called holding on that, right? Because we were about to go straight past the man on the line, and he pulled us backwards and said, "Hey, get back here." All right, 14-13, and we finally have another close game. This is probably good. This will probably do good things for the channel, right? We get more people watching because we finally have another game that's kind of close. And unfortunately, we get one of the more boring halftime shows here, but it's all right. It still is pretty good. And even less fortunate for us is the fact that we have to go straight back onto defense. So there is something about maybe deferring, though I think just about everybody tries to take the ball first when it comes to Tecmo Super Bowl. Oh, what a catch. Well, that's what I get for gambling. You don't want to gamble too often like that. It's another nice catch, man. So we're really on our heels now after two really nice catches there by Colts receivers. Finally, we force the incomplete pass. Oh, that one just barely drops out of his hands. Shoot. Oh, man. Well, that one fooled us. I'll tell you, that fooled me as well. And now we have a lot of work ahead of us, I hate to say. Just not quite fast enough. 20-14. It's been a little while since we've even been behind in one of these games. So, yeah, we'll see what we can do here. I do think that there is something to be said for the strength of teams in this particular ROM not being very even. I feel like you've got a lot of teams that are really weak. And then once you get to the better teams, they're like incredibly good. Alright, let's see what we can do. This is a bad decision. It was an amazing catch, but that was very ill-advised. I need to get rid of this play. I think this curls play is not a play I appreciate very much. Oh, jeez. He was right in front of me, too. Sam Huff with a big sack. That's going to help a little bit. 11-yard loss on that play. We need to get this ball back. We can't let him score. And we're going to run this one again. Well, we're fortunate. We guess right and we get the blitz again, but we're still down by 6. Let's see if this one ends up being kicked into the end zone or not. Looks like it won't. Looks like it's going to wind up short. Alright, I think that we're about to the time where we just need to start passing. Kind of threw that one up for grabs. That was a pretty ugly play. So we throw another interception. It's another pass under heavy pressure. And we're really struggling against this team. Well, we stopped the run that time, but it's a good thing that we stopped to where we did, or he would have been long gone. You can probably hear me hammering down on the controller trying to stop him. That does it. We're in trouble now. So, a game that was close is no longer close, I'll tell you that. And we're in trouble. We can't do anything against this defense. I mean, you can tell me what you would do, but as soon as they guess right and get that blitz, we are toast. We get another block, which is good. But we're really struggling here on offense. We're having a hard time getting anything going. And the problem, if you look closely, is that they have just a much better defensive line than our offensive line. So what we're going to do here is we're going to put Connerly back in and kind of hope for something. As I said before, this is not my favorite play. Down by 12. Yeah, there it is again. So the reason why I keep throwing it to somebody like that when I'm under that kind of heavy pressure is because you can't change on time. If you push the A button one more time there, you're sacked. And the reason for it, as I said, is because their defensive line is just more powerful than our offensive line. We can't do anything to buy even another second. So Here we go again, and we're really, really in trouble now. There were a couple of questions when we lost to Washington earlier, you know, if there was like some issue with like the playing style or something like that. That's not what it is. The issue is that when we get into one of these circumstances where we play against a defense that's much better than our offense, we just can't get anything done. But we did block this. Oh, no, we didn't. How did we miss that? All right, well, we need a desperation heave here or two. You see, that time was a really good example. They did not blitz. They didn't guess right, but just like right here, I've got a guy right in front of me. And see, if you push the A button to get the tackler off of you, it changes the active receiver that you have open too. So it's really, really rough. But this guy right here has been beating our guy on the line every single time, and that's the problem. That's the problem. The problem is a bad offensive line. I really do think that the issue with this particular ROM is that it's not very well balanced. In other words, you have teams like, for example, Baltimore that end up being really, really good defensively, and you don't have good balance for like the offensive line to make it actually possible. So you keep getting this situation happening where like there's nothing you can do. So anyway, we're about to lose this game. There's pretty much no hope right now, and it's been pretty ugly. We've done the best that we could, but as I said, I do think that there's a problem with this ROM, the way that it's designed. We'll keep going. We'll play this to the end, but somebody out there in Tecmo Super Bowl land really needs to revisit this season and make something that's actually balanced right, so that this sort of thing doesn't happen. Because this becomes really, really ridiculous after a little while. So we're going to end up losing this 33-14 with timeout. Oh, 32-14. Sorry, we ended up blocking that. 12 points given up in the fourth quarter, so it's a pretty disappointing loss for us. See, Triplet only had 5 runs for 45 yards. It's a pretty bad game for him. We had a total of 207 yards. They had almost 400 yards. And that gives you an idea of sort of what was happening. Heinrich, not exactly a great game, 45%. We had to take him out. A couple of things we're going to check up on first. So we play against the Steelers again next week. We'll go ahead and get that going. And then we'll check and see if we can find out if Jim Brown is still injured or not. This game's not really designed to do the sort of, you know, roster lookups and stuff you can do with games that are actually designed to be football sims, but we'll take a look here and just see what's going on. And nope, he's still injured. So so much for realism, as others have said. You know, he didn't miss any games in real life. He definitely has missed a little bit here, but as you saw, the Browns did wind up winning their game. So, you know, all's well that ends well. Anyway, so there you have it. Kind of a disappointing game for us, but that's just sort of the way that it goes, and we'll see if we can get it turned around again next week. But yeah, like I said, there are definitely some issues with this ROM as it's been kind of put together. So again, if you are into the editing scene, this is one you might want to look at. Anyway, I'll talk with you guys again tomorrow. Bye.